Do you really want to know what it takes to separate yourself as an athlete? It takes full time commitment. And a lot of it is acknowledging your weaknesses. Think of a weakness as if it's a problem. A weakness is an issue. That's a problem. When you could acknowledge a weakness or a problem and you could work towards solving it and turning it into something that's a strength of yours, or even just something that is not hindering your ability to be successful on the field, that is going to allow you to grow. There are so many areas of growth that are involved with sport. And this is something that I see a lot of sports performance coaches out there that specialize in one thing. So like maybe they're like really good at strength conditioning, or maybe they're really good at mental performance. But in retrospect, you need a mix of it all. Something that I think that a lot of athletes are missing is developing their mental game. And the problem with today's world is that we have access to cell phones. And so all day long, we're like this. And it's taking our focus, our ability to focus. This is something that I see within the school, within my classroom, is a lot of children can only focus for like 3 minutes at a time before they need something new. And when you think about how long a video is, this is even like within content creation, they talk about how like our videos need to be short. They need to be 30 seconds long because you don't have the time and the attention of the viewer. And this is an issue. This is a problem. So that's why like a lot of my work within mental performance coaching is working with athletes on developing their ability to focus. How do we do that? Well, we need to learn how to remove ourselves from stimulation, from the TV, from the video game, from the cell phone. Being able to remove yourself from mental stimulation is going to allow you to now reset. Today's children are seeing so much information in such a short period of time, and their brain is almost not in a position where they're even ready to retain all of this knowledge and information. And that's what's a little bit scary of it, because they're going to be really smart because they are developing at a faster rate than, say, our parents. But I do think that sometimes it's a little bit too much, and too much information at one time can also be not good as well. So I think that that's something that an issue that we need to navigate as athletes, working together to be able to develop our mental focus and removing ourselves from stimulation so that we could really be able to be mindful and present. Being mindful is a superpower. And if you don't know what mindfulness is your ability to be right in the present moment of which you are in. So I talk about this all the time. Like, you might be in a place, like I might physically be here, but mentally I could be somewhere else. And so the practice of mindfulness is working to completely be in the present moment, fully focused on the current situation, the current task at hand, and not thinking about anything else. And this is the thing that is challenging, because you would think it wouldn't be challenging for athletes to be able to be mindful, present, and focused, right? But the problem is that we're so used to being on the cell phone, being on the video game. There's so many other things that grab our attention that athletes will be on the field practicing, and they'll be worrying about something that happened in the school day, or they'll be thinking about their video game when they go home, or they'll be thinking about what they just saw on social media 2 seconds before. And what happens is, and this is something that I see with that too, every single time you're scrolling on social media and you see a video that you like, dopamine release in the mind. So since that dopamine is released in your mind through that cheap dopamine that's coming from the computer or coming from the screen, now when you're doing your actual workout, or you're going to practice, or you're doing something, you're not getting that same release. So a lot of my coaching is getting the athlete to understand this, because we need to holistically work towards being able to appreciate the workout, the training session, the practice, the game, the moment that we are in. And I think that that's really important and beneficial. Athletes training needs to be specific. I saw something the other day. There was a strength and conditioning coach that had his athletes do squats, and they did 225 for however many squats. It was a fundraiser. I don't agree with it. Reason why I don't agree with it is because what is that? Just boosting your ego? What is doing 225 of a squat translate to a field practice or translate to any of that stuff? If anything, it's almost harming you more than it's doing any good. Like, yeah, you might be developing strength, but just because you're developing strength from a bilateral movement, and if you don't know what bilateral means, that just means that your feet are in the same line together. You're never in that position when you're doing athletics. So, what does a test like, hey, how many times can you perform this squat? What is that doing for an athlete's development? And listen, I'm not saying not to squat. I have squatting in my program. Reason I have squatting in my program is that it helps us develop foundational strength. When you think of foundational exercise, you're thinking about the squat, you're thinking about the deadlift, you're thinking about a bench press, and you're thinking about a pull down of some sort or a pull up. That's foundation. All right, that's great. That's going to build overall strength, that will build size, and an athlete will grow from doing those sorts of movements. But in order for an athlete, and again, I'm speaking from experience, in order for an athlete to transition that strength that they gain from doing squats, from doing bench press, from doing a deadlift, is to incorporate resistance training, sports specific style movements, where your muscle, where your body is in unilateral positions, working on rotations, being in a unilateral stance where one foot's in front of the other, being able to flip your hips open, being able to connect both your upper body and your lower body together. Another thing, as far as building athletes, is developing their kinetic chain. Your kinetic chain is going to separate you. Your ability to be coordinated and be able to flow with your upper body and your lower body working together as a unit in unison is going to be super beneficial for you. So right now, if you're an athlete and you're showing up to weight room or you're doing lifts and you're just doing isolated movements, like you're just doing a bicep curl or you're just doing a seated leg extension or you're just doing a laying down leg curl, you're not connecting multiple muscle fibers throughout the kinetic chain. So within programming, this is exactly what we work on. Another thing is training the gait cycle. So when you train your gait cycle, think about gait. And a lot of times when I research gait, they talk about just walking patterns. I like to advance it to all general movement patterns that the body's naturally supposed to be making. So when you think about daily movement patterns or any movement pattern that your joints can do, that your body can do, that your muscle can perform, that's training gait. So training gait is really important and beneficial. And the thing is that it's very advanced and some of the movements are super difficult. So that's why it's really important that we study and we research some of this stuff and we take it super slow. A lot of it's working with the cables. Reason why cables are good is that now it's stretching your muscle at the same time as it's building and strengthening the muscle. So that's why being able to work with cables, resistance bands, things like that are really important for athletes. And that's something that I got from Tom Brady's TB12 Methods book, where he talks about how you could elevate your performance. All right, I like to use Tom Brady. Something that he talked about was it's called pliability. Pliability is your muscle's ability to absorb water. The more that your muscle can retain and absorb water, the faster your recovery process is. What happens is athletes from an early age, their muscle pliability is up here. It's to the max because they don't have a lot of muscle yet. Once an athlete starts to strength train, that's why a youth athlete can go run around and play 5 games and go home, wake up the next day, do it all over again because their muscle's pliable and it's able to absorb water and the recovery process is much faster for them. As an athlete ages and they start to strengthen condition, now they're building muscle. The more muscle mass somebody has is great, right? Because you would think like, oh, I have muscle, I'm going to be more explosive. But as the muscle's building, it also becomes more dense. So people think, oh, muscle hard, hard. I want my muscle to be hard. You actually don't want your muscle to be hard. You want your muscle to be soft. You want your muscle to be built so it's explosive, but you want it to be soft because if it's dense, now fluid, blood, water is not being able to pass through the muscle and speed up the recovery process. How do we do this? Through myofascial release. That's number one. Myofascial release, super important. Number two, hydration. So hydrating with electrolytes, hydrating with zinc, hydrating with foods that you're eating, like cucumber, watermelon, different things like that, are really important and beneficial. Your diet is extremely important. So dietary fiber, making sure you're getting enough carbohydrates. Dietary fiber, what it does is when you're getting enough dietary fiber, it helps you absorb the water that you're retaining, that you're taking in. So it helps absorb it. And it also is really good for your digestive system. If your digestive system's off, it's going to take away at your natural energy sources. Right. So really important if we want to improve our pliability, we're focusing on myofascial release, we're focusing on hydration and our nutrition, what we're taking in, what we're consuming. And it's also your sleep is super beneficial because that's also part of the recovery process. Mobility is huge for athletes. Do you see how many different areas of the game and athletics I'm going into right now? So we talked about the mindset, we talked about mental focus, and we talked about the problems with it. Then we dove into exercise and building the kinetic chain and how we can train the gait cycle so that we can improve our body's ability to perform and work together in unison. Then we dove into fascial release and pliability and making sure that we can get our muscle pliable so that we could speed up the recovery process through myofascial release, hydration, nutrition, and sleep. Now we're going to dive into the actual game itself and incorporating movements that you're going to be making in game into your field training. So like coming up with creative ways that we can train at the field that are putting you in the exact positions that you are going to be in when and circumstances when you're actually playing the game, depending on what game you play. All right, if you're a lacrosse player and you're an X attackman, well, your drills are going to be predominantly from X. We're going to figure out how we can start to work from X and do different movements that are going to translate to exactly what you're doing on the field in game. If you're a defender, well, we're not going to go to the field and shoot majority of the practice. It's not saying that you're not going to shoot. All right, but we're going to work on defense. We're going to work on your approaches. We're going to work on putting you in positions that you're going to be in when you're on the field. And I mean, so when you piece those things together, you're talking about your mindset. You're talking about your training at the gym. You're talking about your recovery through pliability, myofascial release, hydration, nutrition, sleep. Then you're talking about your field work and what you're doing at the field. Now we're going to dive into what you can consume. And when I mean consume, I'm not talking about food. I'm not talking about food. I'm talking about your consumption of what your brain is taking in every single day. If your brain is taking in negativity, whether that be through your social media, whether that be through your friend group, whether that be through your teammates, whether that be through your parents, whether that be through what you're reading, if you're taking in negativity, you're going to be negative. If you're taking in positivity, you're going to be positive. And what happens is that there's something called the human negative thinking bias, and your mind is acting as a protector. Our mind is a problem-solving machine. So our mind tends to actually create problems in our own mind so that it could solve them. Knowing that, we could reverse these processes. All right, so instead of thinking in the negative state, why don't we think positively? How do we think positively when we are already in a negative thinking state? Repetition. Repetition. And the ratio needs to be 3, 5, 10 to 1, meaning that for every 10 positive you get 1 negative. And when you do that over the course of time, and now again, this is through reading, this is through listening to podcasts, this is through surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals who are doing their best to be positive as well. When you do that over the course of time, you're going to transition yourself to being more positive of a human being. What positivity does is when you are feeling more positive, you're going to be more motivated. You're going to feel more disciplined. You're going to be more consistent. And you're now open. Think of positivity, you're open. Negativity, you're closed. So when you're positive, You're open to hearing new information. You're open to experiencing new things. When you're negative, you're closed. You're closed to new information. You're closed to hearing new things. This is your protector. You're like in a shell. The thing is that, and this, think about thousands and thousands of years ago, people were in this negative state because they were actually fearful. Like if they were to walk outside, they were fearful of what may happen before like society and like homes and stuff were created. Well, now people are still living in that state, although they're not necessarily in that threat that they used to be in. And that the issue is that we have to figure out a way to really allow ourselves to be open-minded, be open and positive so that we can absorb information. Imagine you're positive and you're open in every single experience that you're ever having. Now you're going to be able to absorb information at a faster rate. Then you absorb that information and you learn. Now you take what you learn and then you go apply it into daily action that you're taking. When you apply it into daily action that you're taking, you're going to grow every single time. All right. So within this video, we dove deep into the mental focus. All right. How our cell phones are now hindering early childhood, all right, and youth athletes. It's really affecting our ability to stay focused. It's even affecting adults. It's affecting me. It's affecting adults. It's affecting everybody because it's so accessible and it's literally 2 seconds and everything's so fast on the technology. Your video games are faster than in reality. Your videos are faster than in reality. Everything is faster on technology than it is in the actual present moment. And that makes us lose our ability to be present, focused, mindful, and our ability to focus, which you're definitely going to need no matter what you're doing, whether it's for work, whether it's for athletics, no matter what, you're going to need that mental focus. So that was number one. Number two, we dove into your training style, not isolating muscles. You need to be working multiple muscle groups throughout the kinetic chain in order for you to see improvements within your body's functioning and your athleticism. So building the kinetic chain through different exercises that are incorporating both the lower body and the upper body. And that's also a brain thing because your brain needs to be able to think about your lower body moving in correlation with your upper body through rotation, through using unilateral movements. We talked about training the gait cycle, which again goes back into your kinetic chain, just doing what the body was made to do. Movement patterns the body was created to perform. All right, so that's really important. We talked about pliability and recovery. All right, so being able to allow your muscle to recover faster through pliability training. How do we do that? Myofascial release, hydration, and our nutrition and our sleep. Also incorporating mobility in there, which we didn't really talk about too much. All right. And then we talked about our field work and how our field work needs to resemble exactly what we're going to be doing on game day. Kobe Bryant says it best. All right. You want to be able to perform in practice the same exact movements you're going to be doing in game so that when you're asking yourself to make a shot or to play defense or to grab a GB or to run a play, you're not doing something that you've never asked yourself to do before. All right. Instead, if you practice it outside of practice, outside of that game situation, you're asking yourself to do something that you've done tens of thousands of times before. That's going to elevate your confidence. And then lastly, we spoke about what we can consume. So what you are consuming on a daily basis needs to be more positive than it is negative. Imagine, and this is something that I talk to a lot of my athletes about too. Imagine your social media, because it's there, right? It's there. Social media is there. It's not going anywhere. Imagine every time you opened up your phone, you're seeing something positive, uplifting, motivating, or educational. And that's why I like to post a lot of my videos on Instagram and on TikTok and on YouTube, is because I want people, when they see what I'm posting, I want them to get motivated, inspired, educated, something positive. It's bringing them some sort of positivity. So imagine you can program what you normally use on a daily basis and you transition it into something positive. Imagine every single day, instead of you listening to that music that you're listening to, like listen to the lyrics that you hear in your music. That's programming your mind. Imagine you change the music that you're listening to and you go listen to a podcast of somebody that's motivational, inspirational, educational. Now you're consuming that information and you're able to program your mind to be positive, to be uplifting, to be motivated, to be disciplined, to be positive. So I think it's really important. Reading, what you're reading and consuming is super beneficial. These 5 things that we went over, and there's more stuff that we could talk about. These 5 things are very much needed for a student athlete at any level, youth, varsity, collegiate, pro, to become the best version of themselves. And again, we're using the game and we're trying to become the best version of ourselves through the game so that it stays with us throughout the rest of our lifetime. If this video resonated with you, or you feel like you like this video and you feel like you liked what we talked about, or you're maybe a little bit confused, or maybe you want to get on a program that is going to be working on each one of those 5 areas that we spoke about, my coaching program for 12 to 16 weeks focuses on each area. I show you exactly what to do and give you the exact tools that you need for yourself to grow into a better athlete and a better version of yourself that's hopefully going to stay with you for the lifetime, because I'm hoping that you take these skills and you stay consistent and you keep repping them out over time, and now it becomes your daily lifestyle. So if this is something that interests you, this is part of my coaching program and you want to work with me directly, shoot me a message. I want to work with you.